Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Food Origins Podcast. Super excited to have Joel Gil on today. He is chef and owner of Eat Braza 406 in Montana. Just appreciate having him on. We've got a lot of fun connections together. I found out about Joel from Jason Cruz at Bushido Mountain Dojo and Bushido Mountain Coffee. I had actually visited the coffee shop, and I'd missed Jason like by 30 seconds when he was at the old Auto Inn.
Yeah.
And I'm calling him there because Chef Eduardo Garcia had mentioned, he's like, hey, if you're in Hamilton or passing through, so I'd done a podcast with Eduardo, and Eduardo was like, you better go by Bushido Mountain Coffee. And I was like, all right. And I missed Jason by 30 seconds. Literally, like, we parked, the sign was outside saying coffee, and then I parked, then walked over, and the sign was inside already.
God.
Oh no! And then I think you know who she is, but I think one of his students was working there, and she's like, he just left, and I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
oh
It's probably Z. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was Z, I think. And so she was like, he just left. I was like, oh, missed him.
Yeah,
So
that
then,
he's everywhere.
yeah. Well, I had just missed him, like just closed, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I just missed you. He's like, oh, sorry. And then I did a stewardship program last year with Two Wolf Foundation. So shout
Yeah,
out
I
to,
saw that.
and it was a stewardship program for first responders and veterans to take them out in the outdoors, overlanding, and then also do a work trip. So it's a work and trip where we drove out to the Gunnison National Forest and helped
That's
break.
amazing.
Yeah, we helped break trail. And so we happened to be cruising down. We started in Missoula and then cruised down through Montana, then through out to Colorado. And I was like, hey, you guys want to stop at a coffee shop in Belgrade? Because I found out that Jason had moved. So he's like, hey, we moved. And I was like, oh, even better. Like, Belgrade's on the way.
Yeah.
We cruised over there and stopped in, and Jason was awesome, showed the guys a bunch of the dojo and opened a coffee shop even though it wasn't open. He opened it up for us, and
Yeah.
Jason actually demonstrated the 1-inch punch on one of the guys, Cody. And Cody's a big guy, he's like 6'3", big dude. So that was cool. So it was really cool to hear that. And then of course, your name comes up all the time, and so it's a bummer we didn't get to see you. But yeah, I've been following you for a while and seeing you cook, doing all these different things. So it's been awesome to have you on. And tell us, just kind of just take us back where you grew up, what's your ethnic background, and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So I grew up in a town named Bakersfield, California, Central Valley, California. A lot of agriculture, a lot of oil fields. Very different part of California compared to, your typical southern or northern cities. My parents are both immigrants of Jalisco, Mexico. My mom came down here when she was 4 months old, and my dad migrated to the United States when he was 17. I'm first generation Mexican American, Mexican background. And, my first language was Spanish until right around pre-K, I remember my dad trying to teach me English with one of those electronic, um, like toy computers that had like the alphabet and the numbers, and I would just push those over and over and over again until I learned them, and then it was onto a book or something of that nature. But yeah, Bakersfield, and then I spent a lot of time in where my grandparents ended up being when they came to the United States, Mettler, California, just a little farm town 20 miles outside of Bakersfield, and that's where I spent a lot of my childhood growing up. That's where all our parties and everything growing up was out in the Mettler area. All my cousins, family, was just everything happened out there. It was an amazing time of my life for sure.
So yeah, and then like, what was your, I think the easiest fun question I always ask is, what would you eat growing up? What's something that you remember from childhood?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of carne asadas. Every weekend, dad or uncle or somebody had a grill. I remember, so my dad brought me a grill this last summer that's been in our family for 30 years. I mean, that's what I remember as a child. Going to these parties and that grill was always there. It was always open fire, wood, mesquite, charcoal. either grilling chicken, mostly steak, but Mexican style steak, rice, beans, fresh tortillas, and just getting it right off the grill, throwing it into a tortilla and taking a bite. I was never a salsa guy. I always poke fun at my dad saying, I didn't get the heat gene in my body because he loves spicy food and I like it to where I can enjoy it. And he likes it to where like he's sweating at the table, just crying. And I'm like, how do you even enjoy that, Dad? Like that doesn't even look like you're having a good time. But definitely our barbecues, our carne asadas is something that, I try to take to people that I know here and have them experience that, what I experienced as a kid. And still to this day, I mean, they come here or I go there. It's the same thing, it's just nothing but memories for me every time that grill fire's on.
Yeah. What kind of grill is it? And like, describe carne asada to some people if they don't know what you're talking.
Yeah, so carne asada, basically it's just so we use a lot of chuck flap that's sliced or bavette, steak. That we usually typically just a lot of people marinate it, but we just throw salt on it, just sea rock salt on it and throw it right onto the grill. So it's basically a grilled type of chuck flap or bavette of some sort that just gets thrown over the open fire.
Yeah, beef, obviously.
Yeah, beef. Yep, exactly.
What kind of grill is the that you did your dad bring you?
So, I had a really hard time finding like Santa Maria style grills in Montana or ranch style grills is how I knew them growing up. It's basically just couple 100-gallon tank barrel that was welded onto a trailer chassis and it has an arm that goes up and down with a pulley system that they built out on the ranch. So it's for large gatherings, I could probably throw about 30 tomahawks on that bad boy and we're having a party.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Now we got to take us back before you became a chef. Was cooking always a plan, or obviously we share a law enforcement background, so tell us how that came about.
Yeah. So I've always loved cooking, just being around my family, like that was always something that revolved around any gathering, whether it was the guys cooking outside or the women cooking inside, vice versa, just seeing that environment that it created, everybody just having a good time, for hours and hours on end, nonstop laughter and music and just good food. So it always interested me from being super young. I'd be in the kitchen trying to create just wild things all the time. And my siblings were always the test dummies, for my food when I was younger. And then when I was in high school, I was in school and a police officer came down from the Bakersfield Police Department and started talking about their Explorer program. And I was like, oh, what's that? So right around my sophomore year, in high school, I joined the Bakersfield Police Department Explorer program. And basically, what that is, it's like Boy Scouts of America, but for law enforcement. Through the same organization, you just get to learn everything law enforcement. And then I immediately fell in love with law enforcement. I was like, oh, this is great. The brotherhood, the camaraderie, everything that they were teaching me, they were keeping me out of trouble, because I grew up in a pretty rough area of Bakersfield, and it kept me away from gangs. And the school I went to was gang infested, and that just kept me on the straight and narrow. And I was like, okay, I want to serve my community like this and have a positive impact on the people that I live with in my neighborhood. So that's where my kind of love for law enforcement started. Uh, when I was about 19 years old, I had applied to go to culinary school in New York City. And about the same time, life happened and I ended up having a daughter. And I was like, okay, law enforcement it is so that I could have a stable foundation for her. So I did that for a while until it just wasn't working out anymore and it was time for change, which I tried other things in between cooking. Cooking was always there, but my dad has a landscape maintenance company and I was like, "Oh, I'll do landscape construction." So I did that for a little bit and everything just led me back to cooking. So that's kind of where that started.
Yeah, and you said you told me you ended up working for Kern County Sheriff for almost 9 years, is that right?
Yeah, so I was a detention deputy for almost 9 years, and kind of what that job entailed was we received everybody who was being arrested off the street from both city and county. The population in Kern County is, over 1 million people, so it was a pretty busy county jail. And then with all the laws that happened, that passed in California, violent offenders weren't going to state prison anymore. So we were stuck with them for years and years and years, when, county jails are meant for people who are going to go to trial and get sentenced and then get shipped off. And kind of in the time that I came in, all that started changing. And, we were dealing with all the problems state prisons were dealing with, riots and stabbings and gangs and drugs and just, all the above. So that taught me a lot. It was a great experience. I still have a lot of friends that are working to this day. More power to them. Anybody in law enforcement nowadays. My wife's in law enforcement. It's a tough job nowadays for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Hardest job in the world, in my opinion.
I agree. I agree. And like we kind of talked, that's why, seeing some of the things that I've seen, and I'm like, okay, when we're cooking, it's, it's not the end of the world if things aren't going our way. You know what I mean?
We both kind of transitioned out to food in some way. I still cook, obviously. I'm not cooking professionally for anyone right now, but I'll do some fun events and connect with different people. And then this has been some of the best experiences connecting with you guys, and connecting with you today. Like, even this podcast has brought me all over the place. And tell us what that transition was like. You left, uh, being for Kern County, and then how'd you get back into cooking?
So it honestly didn't happen until I moved to Montana. I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life when I came up here. My wife got a job offer with the Belgrade Police Department, and it was kind of just a pick up and go situation. So I knew, and then her and I had at the time 4-year-old daughter, and it's just really hard raising kids in law enforcement. Through my first relationship, it was a victim of your typical statistics of being in law enforcement. We separated, and then that happened. Life happened. So I didn't want that to happen again. Coming to Montana, somewhere I didn't even know. I didn't know anybody here but my wife's parents. It was all brand new to me. And I was like, do I really want to go back into law enforcement? Because that's what I had the most experience in, right? And I was like, no, there's no way. So just driving up here, on the move up here, I applied for a job at Montana State University to be a janitor in their culinary division, just to have a job, to be up here and have something, benefits, all the above. So I applied for that job, making $12 an hour, and this was, I don't know, 11 years ago now, over 12 years ago now. So I got that job, and again, at the time I had an application with Gallatin County Sheriff's Department, and I was going through their whole process. I was in their psych eval. I passed everything. I was in their psych eval, almost to the finish line. And the director of culinary services, his name is Mike. He came up to me. He's like, "Hey, I heard you're considering leaving culinary services." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to go back to law enforcement." And he's like, "What can we do to make you stay?" And, that kind of threw me for a loop because most employers are, you're okay, on to the next. And they really cared about what I had going on. Well, I was like, I just need a little bit more money to support my family. And he gave me like a 40-cent raise. And that kept me there. I was like, okay, these guys are investing in me. That's how loyal of a person I am. I was like, okay, these guys are investing. It's still as a janitor, and I was friends with all the cooks, the chefs, chit chatting with them. And I had a chef who came in, shout out Chef Sean. He came up to me one day and he was like, "You know what you're doing in here, don't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could get my way around." He's like, "Why don't you come work for me?" And I was like, I didn't know, I was still like, that job is like $20 an hour with the sheriff's department. I was like, ah. He's like, "You won't regret it. Just come work for me and we'll get you going." I was like, okay. So I applied for a cook position, and my first position was I was making pizza at one of their pizza concepts. So that's where kind kind of started a little bit, and I was like, okay, I like this. We're getting crushed. There's like 5,000 meals a day going out, and it's just super high volume, high pressure, nonstop. You go in, gas, and go. So that's where I kind of started back into the food world, was at Montana State.
Nice. And then where'd you go from there?
So I stayed with them for a long time, just working. They trained me a lot. I trained all over the place. That was right around the time they were opening a new dining hall by the name of Rendezvous Dining Hall. And the chef who recruited me for the kitchen, he was going to take over that building as the chef de cuisine there. So the way the hierarchy works, used to work at Montana State, is, you have an executive chef who is in charge of the entire culinary program. There was at the time one dining hall with a CDC and a sous chef who oversaw, like, 40 cooks, from, cook ones to cook threes, and a bunch of student staff or whatever. And again, doing, about 8,000 meals a day, super high volume. So Chef Sean, came up to me. He's like, hey, I want you to come work for me over at Rendezvous, as one of the lead positions of one of our concepts. I was like, sure. Shiny new building, brand new equipment. I was like, oh yeah, I'm in, sign me. And MSU, to their credit, I mean, they put some money into that build. Like, it was not cheap equipment. We had state of the art everything, and it was really cool to be able to use all that. Um, so I'm working, and it's one of their concepts called 89er Diner, which is like their fast casual, burgers, omelets in the morning, just a super nothing crazy job. And I kept spending a lot of time at a saute station, at another concept, because we were short staffed. My station was good, so I'd go help the saute station at one of the concepts. And the chef there, he was kind of showing me the ropes on how he did things, how he prepped everything, and kind of I was just like a sponge, taking everything in I could from every concept I could, from every person I could, just to try to keep learning. And the chef, the CDC, told me that he was leaving. And he's like, I think you should take my position. And I was like, there's no way, dude. Like, I said, I'm not. He goes, no. He goes, you are the guy. He goes, I have faith in you. You can do this. And I was like, there's no way. And he ended up leaving, and a sous chef position opened up for Rendezvous. And I applied for it. I was like, I just want to throw my name out there. I'm not even thinking anything's going to happen. So I applied, and, a couple weeks went by, a month went by. At that time, I got moved to the saute station, where, we're cranking out 600 plates. It was like a Chipotle for pasta. It was all live action, 600 plates between lunch and dinner, just going nonstop. And in between, making pizzas, and just all over the place, and to, again, MSU, I give a lot of credit to MSU, because they sent me to training all over. They sent me to Woodstone to train with their chefs on pizza ovens and everything they had going on there, making dough. Like, they really invested a lot in me, that I always tell people, like, that was my culinary school. The time
Yeah,
that I spent there.
you had no formal training before, right?
No, none at all. Just a home cook.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, like, I was embarrassed by that, like, a lot of people doubted me. A lot of people were like, what qualifies you? For the longest time, I wouldn't even say the quote unquote C word. I wouldn't even consider myself a chef, but I couldn't show that to the people I was leading. You know what I mean? Like, I had to be there, and if I didn't know how to do something, I went and learned it, and, um, learned it 20 times, 30 times, as long as it took. Anyways, that promotion came up, and my executive chef at the time, her name's Jill Flores, and I thank her for a lot of my success. Um, she came up to me, and I was ready for the, hey, thanks for applying, but we went with someone else. And she's like, you want to sit down for a second? And I'll never forget this. It was snowing outside. It was during our winter break at MSU. And I was like, sure, what's going on, chef? And she's like, so about your application. There was a lot of people who applied for the job and a lot of people that were more qualified than you are. And I was like, oh, I get it. I was like, thanks for the opportunity. She's like, but we want to take a chance with you because we see your potential and what you could bring to our team. And I just couldn't believe it. I was like, this is insane. So overnight, I kind of just was in charge of an entire dining hall with 8 different food concepts, a bunch of employees, and the ordering. That taught me a whole nother world of like ordering food, writing recipes, and being a school system. You have to be like really um like you got aware of allergens and like there's so many things that go into a university school or food system. So, and yeah, and I was writing solo. Chef Jill, she'd come in, train me on things that I needed to be trained on, and they kind of just walked away. And the culinary director was, he was like, I have faith in what you have to, what you need to do. So we're gonna, they basically rolled the dice on me. From there, became the CDC at Rendezvous Dining Hall, and I was super blessed to be able to incorporate. Like I was super into farm to table and that kind of stuff, and they let me do anything. Like if there was a menu I wanted to write, like or a food concept I thought of in my head, like they were willing to let me work with that. And we brought a lot of local foods into the university system. I mean, there was another gal, her name's Kara. She was in charge of the relations between farms and ranches across Montana and our food system. But I was excited to work alongside her to bring those things like to fruition. Like, oh, there's this ranch that's doing this, or there's that farm that's doing that. Like, let's bring some of their food in, whether it's constantly or for a special dinner or whatever the case may be. And I mean, they let me do pretty much anything when it came to menus, and that really opened up my horizons to different cuisines and different styles of cooking. We had chefs, super talented people working there, and I would learn from them from other countries. And we would just try to learn off of one another. And like I said, to this day, I'm a sponge. And that time at MSU taught me a lot, and I'm super grateful for that time, and I'll never forget it because it's gotten me where I am now when it comes to the food stuff. So yeah, that was a special time in my life. So it was amazing.
That's awesome. What's the highlight of that time? How long were you there? And then what happened next?
So I left there in 2000, and that was right after COVID. So maybe about 2020 is when I left. And I think the highlight is just the people that I met, the students, like football players, just the entire environment that MSU provided for me specifically. To this day, I still have relationships there. And if anything ever happened, I can, that door is always open for me. And just, just the knowledge that and how much they invested in me to be able to do what I do now. And, they had a party for me when I and I don't want to call it a retirement party because I didn't retire, but it's something similar. And, Chef Jill told me that, and I'll never forget, she's like, I always knew you were something greater than just this. I always saw something more for you than just this. And she was happy for me to be moving on to my next step.
That's awesome. So after MSU, I kind of asked you a little bit. It's kind of hard to hear sometimes, but was your highlight of that time? And then where'd you go from there?
Yeah. So after MSU, like again, the highlights is just the people I met and
Yeah.
all the training I did. But after that, I was approached through one of our local distributors who needed help with a program that he was trying to build. He was trying to do, all local beef, all local everything. And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. And he had a butcher shop downtown Bozeman. So I was helping him with that spot part time, just kind of seeing if that's where I wanted to go. And then it got to the point where it was like, okay, here's how much money I'm offering you. Here's what we want you to do. And I was like, it was a six-figure salary, first six-figure salary I'd seen in Montana. And I was like, whoa, and I still get to mess with food. I was still doing cookouts. I was doing demonstration cookouts for some clients and stuff like that. And that kind of got me, well, taking a step back. But anyway, we'll get into that next. But so that got me into the distribution world a little bit. Because he owned a local food distribution company, local veggies, whatever he could find that was local, he tried to sell to restaurants around town. So then I got to know people at restaurants, chefs at different restaurants, talk a bunch of meat stuff with those guys, food stuff with those guys. Again, just soaking it all in. We'd have like these super private dinners where chefs from all over downtown Bozeman would come over, and we'd just start throwing down on food, till 3, 4 in the morning. Just, I just couldn't believe my life at that time. I was like, man, this is crazy. Like it was fun. But then it became too much. Uh, so that, I stayed with him for a while. I was super loyal to the guy. He started doing some practices that I wasn't too happy with like my standards. I ended up having to take over a USDA processing facility in Butte that he purchased. So I was commuting back and forth between Belgrade and Butte every day for almost 3 years. I worked a total of 5 years for him. And, in between, I was doing private chef stuff. I had one of the people that worked at MSU. She had a party planning business, outside of MSU. And she gave me my first wedding I ever did. And I did the tasting at the butcher shop downtown in Bozeman, because it was a cool little spot. Like it was like a restaurant slash butcher shop. Like it was a cool spot. And, they loved what I put in front of them, and they booked me, and I had my first, 200-person wedding that summer. And that kind of, it left an itch. I was like, oh, I like doing this, like it's the adrenaline, the high pressure, the figuring stuff out on how to get food to some of these places we're traveling to. So that started like the private chef side of what I was doing, or catering services. And I had a lot of flexibility with this other job, to where if I did have a gig, I could take the time off I needed to go do the gig. I was purchasing product through our company, so it saved money, and I was just kind of balancing both. And then when I didn't move to Butte, but when we opened that spot in Butte, and I was going back and forth, doing full animal butchery, another, gem all on its own. Getting to learn every part of the animal and being there to do it, is an amazing experience. That turned into wild game processing, making meats and sausages, and just, all kinds of stuff. So all learning experiences for me, that kind of just kept increasing, my pack with experience for what I'm doing now. So again, in between going back and forth in Butte, I was doing private chef stuff. I was doing private catering stuff, and that business started growing quite a bit. And I got to the point where I was like, man, this is becoming like two full-time jobs. And I hated driving to Butte, especially in the winter. Those passes suck. But I was trying to be the guy. He gave me an opportunity to kind of get ahead financially in life, and I'm forever grateful for that. He burned a lot of bridges in town, and I try to stay as loyal as I could to him for providing me and my family financial freedom. And one day I showed up in Butte, and the doors were locked, locks were changed, and without anything, I lost my six-figure salary overnight. Yeah, so that was a very tough pill to swallow, and no explanation from him, no why. I just showed up, he sent me a text, "I'll let you know later," and that was the last I heard.
No, did you at least get a 2 weeks check or something?
Nothing.
Oh,
Nothing.
that's brutal.
It was a very tough time in my life. And then, another thing that kind of happened on my commutes back and forth to Butte, how I think now, like today, is way different than I did even 4 years ago. I was coming home from Butte at night, and I was in a work van, and I'm usually hauling butt, like I'm doing 85 down the interstate, and Somebody comes up behind me in the fast lane, I just go faster. And for some reason, I was passing the Manhattan exit. For some reason, I was like, I'm just going to move out of this person's way, So I move over, they pass me, I get behind them. And then about half a mile down the road, we come up and over a bridge. And unfortunately, that gal got hit head on by another vehicle. So and then I was about to lose control of my van because I was trying to swerve out of the way. And it all happened so slow motion. It was so weird how you have those experiences, in life. And, I clipped the front end of her car and it corrected me. And then I just launched off the interstate and slid about 100 yards from the crash site. So yeah, it was extremely intense. All I could think is if I didn't move, that would have been me, like something told me move, and I did. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, like you never know what's going to happen in life. You got to just shoot for the stars every single time. Um, and just do it. If there's something you want to do, just do it. The next couple of days, I was like buying people's groceries. Just so thankful to be alive. Like I was just, I just, I mean, life is just precious to me. And since that day, that's my mindset. Like there isn't anything on this world that we can't do. If you want to do it, do it. Don't wait, just do it. So yeah. And I think and everything leads to where I am now. And that I fully believe that, because it just gives you like a form of resilience. Like nothing's going to stop me. You know what I mean? Like I'm just going to keep moving forward, keep pushing the needle and just keep going nonstop. So yeah, that's where that ended.
The Food Origins podcast is sponsored by Firecracker Farm out of Florida. It's Alex Buttermart and his family grow hot peppers and infuse them into sea salt. You guys have seen me cook with it on social media quite a bit. And the podcast is now sponsored by firecracker.farm. I have a promo code Food Origins Pod C. You get 10% off your first order. Make sure you check it out. Come in these awesome push grinders. And also, you'll see my latest flavor that I inspired Alex to make, yuzu. It's an awesome buddy batch. Use it on pretty much everything. You can use it on eggs, steak, chicken, vegetables, coffee, spirits. Um, awesome way to wake up with a little scoop of honey and some hot salt on there. A lot of fun ways. I have a bunch of recipes that I've written for Firecracker Farm on the website, so check that out. There's a good 18 recipes or so. Plus, 10% of the proceeds go to Op 300 and Pipe Hitter Foundation. So make sure you check them out. Appreciate the support. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the episode. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. We both like completely flipped over our positions and dealt with a lot of different things happen. And it's hard to really see them in the moment. And you're like, why is this happening to me? Or why does this happen to family loss? A lot of different things happen, and you're just like, and then you get some time with someone that you probably wouldn't have, or something else comes up, or yeah, you moved when you should have,
Yeah.
and you got out of the way. Unfortunately, someone else got hurt in the process, but like, yeah, it's really strange when stuff happens to you and you just trying to figure it out, and you stayed resilient, which is awesome. And there's a lot there's a lot of people that we know together. Where did you go from? Yeah, so you got kind of screwed over and Butte, and then where'd you go from there?
So, in between all of those things, I had a lot of contacts in the restaurant world in Bozeman and Gallatin County. And another group that was super crucial to my success was Blue Collar Restaurant Group. So, they own Sidewinders, they own Tanglewood, that whole kind of market area in Bozeman. They had one of their directors named Blaine. I called him uh kind of for a little bit of advice, and I kind of let him know what was going on a little bit before it happened. And he, at the same time, was kind of wanting to open the Auto Inn in Manhattan. So it kind of just happened to where I ended up consulting for them on opening up the pizza shop there. And he wanted a New York style pizza, and I was like, cool. They had a woodstone oven. And I was like, cool. I got you. And they kind of just gave me the opportunity to open that place for them. And I brought another friend of mine along with me. His name's Jesus, another chef in town. And we kind of just started doing that. And that's where I met Jason. It kind of just all happened for a reason, I feel like. And then Blue Collar was giving me opportunities to work large events for them, catering events. I did Wildlands Festival with them. I did, some employee appreciation stuff at the YC for, 800 plus people, weddings, all kinds of stuff. I was just basically a contracted chef for them for a lot of their events. And again, all opportunity, I got to see how that world worked a little bit, and it helped me, kind of change the way I was doing things in my private, or catering gigs that I had. Because it turns out I was charging people way not enough money for what I was doing, but you learn those things.
Yeah. I mean, what a cool building the Auto Inn is.
Super cool. It's for sale now, and I'm like, we're not there yet, but that'd be a super cool spot to be in for sure. It's iconic for that area.
Yeah, really cool. So, yeah, I mean, just to tie in, Jason, shout out to Jason Cruz at Bushido Mountain, uh, black belt under Hickson Gracie, which is rare, some rare air there. And then he had the coffee shop where you were working. And you were also you weren't just doing pizza, which looked really good because I saw the stone oven back there, but you were also doing like kind of like a little bit of Brazilian barbecue and like
Yeah.
and some other stuff, right? Some open fire stuff back
Yeah,
then.
so I had a food trailer that I had purchased through this entire situation, and Blaine actually had the title to that. And Blaine was super nice enough to sign it over to me, and you know I was able to have my start because he did that. So I was just trying to figure out what kind of concept to do out of the trailer. And I love open fire cooking. I mean, there's nothing better than just tasting wood on meat. Like, it's just the best. And again, reminds me of my childhood. My dad always says, if you're going to eat carne asada, it needs to be grilled on wood or charcoal, not a flat top, which is what most people, you go to these taco spots, with trailers or in town, it's all cooked on a flat top, which, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not asada, that it's just carne at that point.
Right. That's true.
It
Yeah.
is, so It, so yeah, we do open fire things. I set up my trailer out in at 406 Brewing in Manhattan, and just playing with menus. I did like a burger thing. I did, grilled ribeyes on the open fire, like steak and frites, a little chimichurri over the top, like just different things to see kind of what stuck. And then that's right around where beef prices are just keep going up. I mean, to this day they keep going up. So I was like, man, like I got to find something more affordable for people to be able to buy into. So, I started doing the smash burger thing. Um, and to go back a little bit, uh, so there was another chef friend of mine who came to me and he's like, "Hey, dude, I want to do this private chef thing." Blah blah. I said, "Well, I have a food trailer, and I don't know how Butte's gonna go, so you could use that while I'm trying to figure things out." And we did go on a little venture. We had like a summer season where, uh, and this was after the auto in and everything, where we were opening up at an abandoned town pump parking lot. With town pump's permission, they were charging us $500 a month to park in their deserted parking lot with no power, no water, no nothing. But it was on Jackrabbit, which is a big major road in Belgrade. And we wrote our first menu, and it was like so like ambitious. Like, we were making handmade pasta. We were doing sashimi, like we were doing sushi grade everything, flying stuff in from Japan, like doing all these just tomahawk. It was like, and I was thinking like, this is out of a food trailer, which is cool, like nobody's doing this kind of food out of a food trailer. Well, when people show up, they're not expecting that. And we had a burger on the menu, and everybody always ordered the burger. I mean, people who knew food ordered our food, but everybody wanted the burger. And I was like, man, we should just sell burgers. Like, there's no reason to be spending so much money on product. And then in the food trailer or food truck world, you just never know how it's going to go when you start. I remember my first time I ever set up, I was Ace Hardware in Belgrade. I was like, all right, here we go. This is it. I was doing burgers and like loaded dogs or something like that. And I think I ended up selling like $120 worth of food. And I was just devastated. I was like, what is going, like, I can't make a living off of this. So I
Yeah.
really started like, do I want to do this? Do I go work somewhere? So it was just a trial and error process for sure. In between the auto in, the food trailer, the cookouts for a little while for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you got, yeah, it's, I mean, smash burgers are hard to beat. Like, yours look great. How did, I've got to ask you, since you're talking about touching into beef companies and looking for a purveyor. Another friend of ours, mutual friend of ours, Greg Putnam, a Little Belt
Yep.
Cat. How did you get tied into a Little Belt?
So funny story, Little Belt and the company I was working for were actually I don't want to say rival competition for one another in the beef world, right? We both sold to Lone Mountain Ranch. We both sold to a bunch of places, and Little Belt was just coming up and up, on all their beef sales around the area. So I'd run into Greg we had the same warehouse out in Four Corners. I'd run into Greg from time to time out there. I did a couple things for Greg in Butte. I always kept it very mutual with everybody, professional, no bad blood between anybody. And when I ended up leaving, showing up to closed doors, and when I decided to do the smash burgers, I was like, okay, I want to try Greg's product. I've already seen Greg's product. It's good product. And the number one thing I look for is consistency in whatever product I'm using. And his was extremely consistent every single time I was around it, I saw it, or cooked with it. So I just reached out to those guys and I told them kind of what I had going on. And I mean, they were on board from day one, like super welcoming, like didn't even matter if we were working for different companies or whatever. And to this day, I mean, Greg is amazing. His team is amazing. Their ranch is beautiful. And to me, some of the best beef you could possibly eat anywhere in the US for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Shout out to Greg at Little Belt. And there's a few chefs that work with him too. Like, Ronga Pereira, who I've interviewed, who's out of Bozeman, another private chef. And then there's a bunch of other guys that I've actually tied him in with that are going to start carrying Little Belt.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, well,
Yeah. I try
yeah,
to preach as much as I can. It's just, when you're cooking, you want consistency. Your customer wants the same thing every single time. And a lot of these local places, local ranches, there's two things that I look for. Number one is consistency, and number two is volume. Can they keep up with my volume? um and Little Bell just knocked it out of the park with both of those, and I never have any issues on product, and my customers know exactly what they're getting every single time, and I know that I'm not going to have to substitute with anything, so that makes it a no-brainer for me, and that's why I use them.
I mean, I ahead of time sent you some of the yuzu salt from Firecracker Farm. Shout out to them; they're a sponsor of the podcast. But that
Good,
rib,
by the way, amazing.
good. I'm glad that
Yeah.
ribeye that I'm searing right there. That's a Little Belt cattle tomahawk. But
Heck yeah.
it just so happened to make the card for
That's
the yuzu
cool.
salt,
I
which is
saw that when I opened the package. I was like, that's awesome.
yeah. And Alex was like, "Oh no, I send me that photo. I want to use that for the intro card." And I was like, "All right, that's cool." Yeah,
Sold.
I sous vide it, and then I was like, I've got this sear gun from my buddy Sean that's like a sous vide sear gun. It's like basically a
Yeah.
flamethrower, and I was like, this will be fun. And I actually did it inside, which I was like, it was a little sketch, but it was fun, and we got that shot of it, and it's perfect. It's Greg loves it. Alex ended up using it for the salt. The
That's a
salt's
win-win.
yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. Free promotions for everybody.
Yeah, right.
You've done some fun events. Shout out to you sending me this awesome hoodie.
Yeah,
We gotta talk about the
absolutely.
ice race. Tell me about the ice race, man. Like, that
So
looks super cool.
so that, the ice race, so I have another gentleman who I can't, like, my success, a lot of my success is because of him. He's a business mentor of mine, chef mentor of mine. Shout out to Peter. He has taught me everything to this point where I'm at now. Like, I've learned so much from that guy. He doesn't even know how much I've learned from him. And he knows that my work ethic and what I stand behind, he can 100% support without even me being in the room. So, how the ice race situation came about is there was a production company out of Denver, Colorado, who was putting on the ice race. They did it in Aspen last year. It was the first time it was ever in the United States. It's usually in Europe. And it's put on by Ferdy Porsche, which is the great grandson or grandson of the creator of Porsche or Porsche vehicles, you know. Uh, so I guess they wanted to do it in Big Sky last year, but there was too much snow. Go figure, because this year there wasn't enough snow.
Right.
But that production company who put it on in Denver was going to put it on here in Big Sky, and Peter was in charge of the entire operation as far as on the Big Sky side. And they were like, "How are we going to get food to our crew up on a mountain in the middle of nowhere?" And Peter, I didn't even know anything about it. Peter's like, "I got a guy," and they're like, "Cool, connect us." And then next thing you know, I get a call from Peter, like, "Hey," or it was a text. He's like, "Hey, Fat Ice Race wants you to cook long contract." It was like super short, and I was like, "Okay, cool." Like, I didn't even know who Fat Ice Race was or anything. So then I started doing my research, and I was like, "Oh, dang, this thing is cool." I love cars. I love fast cars, and I'd never seen fast supercars race on snow before. So I was like, "Oh, this could be cool."
And these are
So
not cars. These
no,
are high-end Porsches, high-end Lamborghinis,
yeah,
high-end Ferraris, and then some. Like, and then all the fun vehicles too. Like some rally cars were there, of course.
it was car heaven, man, for real. Like I was
Yeah,
just blown away.
kept seeing all these ads for it. Like, it's funny enough that Instagram was throwing all these ads for the Fat Ice Race. So you see like the Porsche doing, drifting through the snow, and
Yeah.
you got a couple like cool Ferraris doing it. And the
Yep.
Ferraris, there are Ferraris that are built for them. They're all-wheel drive, and yeah, and then all of a sudden I see Joel with he's taking his hoodies, and I'm like, "What? You going to the ice race?" I was like, if it wasn't so far away, I was like, I would come help you cook. It's like it's kind of far for me, but yeah. I mean, how was the event, man?
So, what we had the opportunity to do was we were cooking for the staff and crew who put on the entire event. I got out there on February 2nd, and my contract ended March 8th.
Okay.
Every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And when I got there, it was like for 8 people. And the numbers started going up gradually, and we were basically serving food for people between 30 and 50 people every single day until until race weekend and the week after race weekend. So we were just in the background grinding, man. I mean, shout out to my guys. You know, it that literally I had to go into I shaved my head. I was taking a shower and hitting the road. I live in Belgrade. My commute was 4 hours a day, and breakfast had to be ready at 7 a.m. at 7:30. And everybody who helped me during that time, like super thankful for them. It was for sure my largest contract to date for anything I've done. And I learned a lot. They learned a lot first time in Big Sky. And we're talking about, well, next year we need to do this and that and this and this. Uh, so it was a lot of fun, a lot of stress, but in a good way, and good stress. And I just learned a lot from that event, man. Yeah, the production teams were amazing. The whole crew, everybody was amazing. Taught me with a lot of respect. Offered me more festivals and stuff in Denver, Colorado, to come out there and cook for them. 'Cause these guys do this all over the U.S. And my team and we performed enough where people noticed the job we did, and now we have offers everywhere,
Awesome.
which makes me feel good. But I'm not in a position to be like, okay, wife and daughter, I'm going to Denver for 45 days. I'll see you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like this, and then just the amount of people. What'd you end up making out there? Like, what was the main like?
So literally, I had to write a menu for 38 days, and it was all like in the morning, it was all like breakfast burritos or sandwiches and that type of deal. For lunch and dinner, heartier meals, construction guys, they didn't want sandwiches or anything like that. So, we were doing braised short ribs, over mashed potatoes and veggie. Like they wanted protein, a protein, starch, and a veggie with every single lunch and dinner, and something that filled them up to be out there in the elements. They basically built this place from nothing. Like when I got out there was a couple sticks up for a tent, and by the time the race weekend came along, they had the track, all the VIP tents, all the kitchens for Moonlight Basin. Like these guys were wizards. It was so cool to see from start to finish, from seeing them put to executing race weekend and taking it all down. Just well-oiled machine. And I was like, that's my style. Like I love how they executed that. But just all, I grilled some stuff when the weather was good. Gave them a little taste of Santa Maria tri-tip and grilled chicken and sirloin steaks, and like just feeding them hearty meals. And it was cool to know that we made a difference for them, because that's what kept them pushing, is knowing they had food. Because a lot of times they said, "Oh, we just get a meal voucher, and then we have to go find something to eat." And a lot of times we're eating Jimmy John's every single day. And I was like, "Well, we don't even have a Jimmy John's in Big Sky." So they're like, "Yeah, we wouldn't know what to do if you weren't here." So all the staff was like so grateful about all the food we were providing. And every meal was like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." And I'm like, "Man, like, thank you so much."
That's awesome. Yeah, and like I text you too. I sent you a message. I was like, "Hey, I think Rob Bailey from Flagner fails
Yeah.
far out there." And then like 10 seconds later, you're like, "Yeah, he's here in the tent right now."
Dude, it was so crazy because the second I read that, I looked up and I saw him and Dana walking
Yeah.
towards where I was at. And I was like, I felt rude afterwards because I pointed at him, because I was thinking about our messages. I saw him and I pointed at him and I was like, "Can I take a picture with you guys?" And then I ended up sending you that picture, which is just crazy that it happened like that.
Yeah, awesome people, run an awesome brand. They're doing some fun stuff up here. If you ever can get up
Nice.
there, they're doing a outdoor event again in May where they bring in a bunch of drifting and they
Oh,
have
that's cool.
snowmobile jumping, motocross, vehicles, food trucks. Usually there's some foundations involved too, some charity, some good stuff.
That's amazing.
And there's some other events you've done. I've got to bring up the Ghost Squadron. Can you tell
Oh,
me
yeah.
about like, because I see Chef Joel. You are a chef, by the way, Chef Joel doing some tomahawks on like open fire, and he just kind of like breezes over the balcony, and there's these fighter jets in like this digicamo, which is part of Ghost Squadron. Tell us about that event, man. That looks awesome.
Yeah. So, like I said, man, there's so many people that have really uplifted me, my business, and really supported, what I got going on, what we provide, the food that we make. And they are some of the best people. It's for sure the best clients that I have. And it's just so surreal that I get to cook for them, all the time. And, they're just super nice. Shout out to Casey Phillips. She is an angel. She believes in me and my team and providing food for everybody who goes and gets to participate in their events. And we've kind of become their main caterer for everything that goes on in the hangar. And it's just an amazing group of people. Like they're all like seriously just. And I ran into some of the guys because they flew over the ice race and I saw them out there, and every time we see each other, they're just the nicest humans on planet Earth. The Ghost Squadron those guys are the shit. Like they're so cool, amazing group of guys, and all treat us like family. For seriously, like every time we're there, it's just like, they treat us with so much respect and allow us to just make them good food every single time.
Yeah, and that's Jared Isaacman's company, right?
It is, yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. No, it's yeah. I love taking like some of my staff that have never been there. I love taking them in there, and they're just like their minds are just blown. Um,
Can I go?
yeah, no, they're a good group of people, and
Yeah.
they are a part of my success story for sure, through and through. and I'll never ever forget that. The first party I did for them was 4 years ago now for a St. Jude's fundraiser.
Mm.
I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I knew the event was big, but man, we were cooking tomahawks over open fire. We were doing cedar planks, Chilean sea bat, like all open fire, everything. There was no kitchen. And the event was amazing. And they lost contact with me for a little while, and that contact came back, you know, a year ago, and it's been, on and going ever since. So super thankful for Casey for reaching out and, keeping me coming back. So that's exciting. Every single time I get the call like, "Hey, we're having a party. I'm on my way."
Well, I put out that I was doing a podcast with you yesterday. I try not to do it because I don't want to jinx like anything happening. Like I've done that and then had to meet
Yeah.
people, and I'm like, no. But I like getting some questions from the followers, and I got a couple questions for you, which are all good ones. Shout out to Jason from Bushido Mountain. He asked, "What describes your daily mindset?" You mentioned a little bit, but you could just do a little deeper dive in it and just be like, "What's your daily mindset like?"
Yeah, I mean, it's we live in the world where there's so much noise, from so many different directions. And I always try to just push the limits when it comes to my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like I try and there's nothing I can't set my mind to that I can't accomplish. And I call it the warrior mindset. Like you just push through it and you just get it done. I get a lot of calls from people last minute because they know I get stuff done. And I never show that. Like I don't show the stress to the client or to the friend or to whatever the situation is. I just get in that warrior mindset. I tell my team, like, hey, knuckle up. We're going to get this done one way or another. And it's going to be executed to the best of our ability. And we have to give people a good experience. So as far as mindset, like positivity, determination, resilience, and just push through it. You just have to push through it.
Yeah, there you go. How do you decide when a dish is finished? It's a good one.
When a dish is finished, as in after it's cooked, or just like putting a concept together. I mean, I guess I could go through both.
I think it's both, but like I think shout out to Tembo Studio. That's my wife. She's got some good questions, but she said, I she's probably just referring to like, yeah, like how do you know that's going to be it? That's what you're going to serve, or also, yeah, I mean, also chefs know it's like, how do you know that dish is done?
Yeah. I mean,
Wait,
to be
right?
honest with you, is it something I would put in front of my family?
Mm,
Is it something that I would give to my wife and daughter, to my mom and dad, to my brothers and sisters? If I would be satisfied with that, or my grandparents, like if I'm putting something in front of someone, like I know it's everything I have, and I will not send something out that I don't think is complete, or I will restart, or we will figure out a way to make it better. But always like, is this something I would serve my family?
yeah, fair enough. What dish represents your identity and why?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, my mom's birria or barbacoa is just a mesh of a lot of different things. I think in my life I've done a lot, seen a lot, and experienced a lot. But it's still home. I still try not to stay in the clouds too long. But my mom's birria, I think, is what would identify me for sure.
If you had to start over, what would you do differently? Like cooking wise, I guess.
I would have started a lot younger. If I could start over, I'd start over in my 20s, and I probably wouldn't be working right now. Um,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't have it any other way, honestly. I think things happen the way they do because that's how they need to happen. And but yeah, starting younger for sure. If I could do it over again, 100%.
I always have some fun ones before we close it out, but we can go into anything else you want to talk about. But what's your favorite tool in the kitchen?
Favorite tool in the kitchen. I mean, if you could throw wood or charcoal in it, sign me up. Whether it's a Weber grill or we're cooking on state of the art open fire grill, I'm there. Knives are cool too. You can't go wrong with knives, but I feel like everybody says knife.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but I like being specific. Is there a specific one that you're just like, man, this one's my baby?
I don't I Spaceman Knives out of Utah make some pretty cool
Yeah.
knives.
Okay. I've
His
heard of
chef
those.
knives are what I use the most just because they're workhorses, and I'm very like, I leave my knives certain places and people grab them, which is a no-no, but it happens, and it hurts my heart to spend a lot of money on knives if they're gonna get destroyed. So, yeah, Spaceman Knives out of Utah, I use a lot of his chef knives.
Nice. Shout out to them. I've seen their knives. They're cool. A dish you'd want everyone to either try, maybe that you don't think they've had, and then a dish that you'd say like, you know what, you should make this at home.
Dish there. So I love cochinita pibil, and I integrate that into a lot of different ways of cooking. I made it with duck, primarily with pork. It's a pork dish from the Yucatan area that usually gets wrapped in banana leaves and cooked underground. You can absolutely do that, but you can also do it in a Dutch oven in your stove, if you don't want to get too crazy with it. But just that chipotle paste, the chilies, the citrus, the orange, all the herbs and spices, cook it forever and it just falls apart. Nothing better with the fresh tortilla, some pickled onions, little habanero sauce, bomb.
It's so good. Shout out, like you can do it. I've done it at like a 6-inch deep dish pan. Like those like it's not a sheet pan, but you know what I'm talking about. One of the
Yeah,
serving,
for sure.
it's probably like half sheet size, but it's like 6 inches deep. And then you just wrap it up. Yeah. Cook it for 5 hours or more.
Yeah,
And
just send it.
dude, it's
I did a
good.
version of duck like that, and I made it into a tamale. Um, and shout out Chef Eduardo Garcia.
Yeah,
He's a legend in our area, a legend everywhere, honestly.
for sure.
And I had him come out for a tasting menu that I had at 406 Brewing, and when he was questioning me about the tamale, I knew I did something right. Like he's like, "What'd you do to the dough?" And I was like, "Oh, I used duck fat." He's like, that's yeah, just that whole experience was super cool. Him trying my food and approving of it was very like validating for me and what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Appreciate Eduardo a lot. He's taught me a lot, learned a lot from him, the support he has for everyone else too, like
100% nonstop love.
nonstop. And yeah, like it's just, he has a great way of describing food and the experience and
Yes.
telling people. And then, he was doing some classes. I took his tamale class that he did, his virtual class. And
Yeah.
yeah, we did banana leaf style and the husk style. So it was like we did both, which was cool.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
And going into the question, I mean, I think that's something that everybody should try making tamales. Sit everybody, it's like making pasta at an Italian family's house, or, tomato sauce, like tamales gets everybody around the table, conversating about their life, their day, and, the outcome is delicious. So, and there's nothing you can't put in a tamale. So to each his own on what they put in it, but that's something I encourage people to look into. It's not rocket science. It's a labor of love, but anybody can do it.
Well, I'm honored to have you on and appreciate all your success is going on. What's it look like for you for the next 5 to 10 years? What's Eat Braza look like?
Oh man. So, the smash burger thing just took off. Like that is booming. The private chef and catering side is also booming. I'm getting ready to purchase another trailer to do the smash burgers in Belgrade. Looking at a couple brick and mortars to possibly build a catering kitchen. We've just outgrown our operation now. We have a couple other things going on in the summer. I don't know if I could say or not, but pretty big events in the summer here in Gallatin Valley that are huge for the company. And I'm hoping 5-10 years. I have a very good chain of our Braza Smash brand. All through Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. And that's like the long-term goal, is having that passive income from those operations, and then me being able to just focus on cooking what I love to cook for the people that I love in my life or my friends and family. And just never stop sharing knowledge, taking on the next generation, trying to show them, work ethic and what it's like to work hard for the things that we have in life, and just keep teaching the next generation, man. But yeah, Braza Smash is gonna be, I think the way that we're projecting things, and the way, our product, like we spare no expense when it comes to anything we use for those burgers. And people are like, how are you making money on that? And I live the best of both worlds, on my private catering side makes up if I'm losing anything on the Braza Smash side, or vice versa. It's just, all I know, it's working. People enjoy it. And we're going to continue to grow that brand and continue to grow the catering operation. I mean, with the catering operation, we're like maxed, until I start finding a house we could all live in, or like a kitchen we could all live in. And the way real estate is in the valley, it's tough, but we're looking. But Braza Smash is what I really want to focus a lot on right now, because that's special. The brand, the message I have behind it, it's just going to keep growing more and more and more. And I see that being a monster 5 to 10 years down the road.
Oh yeah. Awesome. Just give us any, the floor is yours, man. I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And that's what I like. You always say like, oh, we had all these different people on it, but yeah, but you are one of those people. So it's like you're doing good things for the community and everything else, and putting out some great food, which I'll have to come see you at some point, and we'll have to
For
cook
sure.
something. I told Jason I want to do something there. Maybe we'll do
Yeah.
some yakitori or something.
100%.
Yeah, give us any advice you have, any promotions, anything you want to promote, and then also obviously tell everyone how they can find you.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for having me on. Like I said, we talked. You've had some legends on your podcast, and I really appreciate you giving me that platform. You've now become a part of my journey. And I want to thank everybody else who has been a part of that journey. Like I said, there's a lot of people who have stood by me. Jason Cruz being a huge like cheerleader supporter. Like, that dude keeps me going and fired up. So I want to say thank you to him and everything that he does for me, for my business, for my family, in life, as a mentor, all the above. um and a message for people, just don't give up on your dream. Don't let people tell you you're not something, just because you didn't do it like they did. The conventional route isn't always the route for everybody. Take it from me. I went literally from making $12 an hour to, you know, uh, extremely, well off company now. Like, I'm looking to hire employees, and giving other people opportunities to come up. And I just want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody eat. Food is what brings us all together, regardless of anything, background or whatever. I look around the burger stand, and there's cops, there's tattoo people, like, and everybody's just enjoying what's in front of them, not what's around them. So yeah, just follow your dreams, keep pushing, and don't give up. And if you're ever in Belgrade, look up Braza Smash. We're going to be open 5 days a week this summer, and no more pop-ups. Just like, we're going to have a standalone business hours, and same spot in Belgrade. Come try the best burger you're ever going to have in the state of Montana. I guarantee it. I've been really humble about that. Like, I try not to throw it out there, but I guarantee this will be the best burger you ever have in your life. And it took me a long time to be able to say that, because there's other people, that do the same thing, and nothing against those guys, but I can guarantee you that, mine's pretty tasty. And this is from the customers, not from, not just from me. If you don't believe me, ask anybody who's tried the burgers. And then private catering stuff, Eat Braza 406. We're on Instagram. Reach, all my contact information is on there. We do, we're getting into very large planned events now, kind of like the ice race. We're your solution to kind of navigating through those bigger projects, if people are interested in that. And I really enjoy that. Just the pressure and the environment is so cool. But yeah, Eat Braza 406 is where you can find me, or Braza Smash on Instagram, and all my contact information is on there if anything pops up for anybody. And we travel. So, I mean, I've been outside of Montana cooking for people, which is also amazing.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Chef Joel. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dave. And hopefully you come by soon.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for listening. We're out.